Hello students, welcome to my studio. My name's Nell Anderson. I'm the art teacher at Canyon Lake High School. So I'm here for a quick graphite history and tutorial for you guys. Have you ever thought about where graphite was made or how it was made and about how long ago we started using it? So typically graphite is actually carbon based and is mined, it's natural. We then will take clay and crumble the two together to make basically like a paste. The graphite paste is then flattened out and rolled to be what is going to be inserted into the pencils. Once it's baked, it's now hard, and I add a little bit of some wax in there to give it kind of a smooth rolling surface when you draw with it. Graphite actually comes from a Greek word, graphene, which means basically to write. So even the Greeks had a form of graphite that they would work with, and it was in a raw state. It was more kind of like charcoal based, and they would hold it and then mark with it. It was actually a Swiss-German inventor. He was the first person to think about inserting graphite into basically a wooden stylus. So it was almost kind of like a wooden straw, and he crushed up the graphite, mixed it with some clay binding agent, and then basically rolled them out like coils like we do with clay, and he baked them and then inserted in there. It's very crude. It wasn't anything as nice as what we have nowadays. Graphite has a European scale for hardness and softness. So H is going to be hard, which means that it's going to have more clay mixed in with the graphite. So the higher the H grade, the harder it is. So your graphite pencils, the ones that have the mechanical with the click, 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 those are actually going to be mostly clay based, so that it's a very nice firm point that you're able to insert into your plastic pencils and write with. Now when you start moving up to the B range, that's where it's going to be softer and have more graphite into it. So for me personally, I like the 6B pencil, which is what I have here. Graphite pencils can go all the way up to 14B. But I don't think it's really necessary to go that high with it, because I'm going to teach you some really cool tricks on how to up your level of graphite drawings. Graphite has been used for thousands of years for drafting and drawing. Like I said, even the Greeks used graphite. And so it's also kind of recent that we started to make them a lot healthier, where they don't have the lead based in them. So people used to say, do you have some lead for my pencils? There was a small amount that was mixed, lead that was mixed in with the graphite. We don't do that anymore. All our pencils are lead free and safe. I still don't recommend chewing on your pencils, but some people have those nervous habits they got to keep up with. So one of my favorite tips to teach you guys how to up your level of graphite art is to actually mix graphite and black prisma. So black prisma, as you can see, is pure black. So wherever we have our pupils, eyelashes, or darker values in our hair, this is what's gonna really give it that extra pop and oomph. Another neat trick is also to use toned paper, maybe a slight cream color, or it could even be gray, or a light brown. When you have a toned paper, you can even come in and mix a little bit of some white prisma in there to get those really yummy highlights. But I'll show you those tricks and techniques a little bit later. Right now, just like any sport, you have to warm up. And of course, with every sport, you do a lot of warm-ups before you have a game or a practice. And that's just to get all the rust off and get you used to handling and manipulating these two tools together. A lot of my students that are drawing 3s and 4s, when I ask them to do a value scale, they roll their eyes. They're like, I know how to do this, miss. Would you say that to your coach when he's asking you to go do lunges or bear squats or suicides? You do it to help tone your muscles. Same thing with drawing. Drawing is just like a sport or playing a musical instrument. The more you practice, the better and better you get. So all of my little tutorials are little helps and hints to get you better and more accurate with your drawing and shading skills. So let's get started. All right, welcome back. So what we're gonna be making is our value scale. Now, like I said, graphite does come in different ranges, but if all you have is a number 2 pencil, you can achieve the same results just by applying lighter pressure or more pressure. So right here at my ruler, I'm gonna mark off about 5 inches, and this is just a 1-inch ruler. It goes up to 18 inches, and just for this tutorial, we're just gonna warm up. It's not gonna be very much of a large value scale. So start at the 5. I'm going to wrap around the ruler to make a nice rectangle shape, okay? So right now, this is the 1/2 inch right here. This with the 1, this is the 1 inch mark right here. So right here, this would be 1.5. Here we have 2. We have 2.5 and then 3. So that's basically where we're gonna be marking off top and bottom in 1/2 inch increments. So right here, this is basically going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is our halfway point right here, and I'll explain that a little bit more. 6, 7, 8, 9, and finally 10. So starting with 1, this is going to be my lightest value. This is going to be the tone of the paper. So if you're going to be drawing a portrait of a person, we have highlights on the end of our nose, we have the white shine in our eye, we also have the whiteness in our eye around our cornea. So we want to leave this blank and pure because with any other sketch or drawing, you need to map out where you have your highlights. And then finally the 10 is going to be our darkest value, and that's where we're going to be coming in with our black prisma. Now, with my students, I always tell them it's nice to kind of do a value tornado so that you understand, you can see how dark of values you can get with your pencil. A lot of times the purity that's in the graphite varies between companies. So if someone has some pencils from Generals, which you can get at Walmart and Hobby Lobby, they're going to be very different than Reeves. I think Reeves tends to have a little bit more clay in with their projects. With their pencils versus Generals, which I think have a little bit more pure graphite that's in their lead of their pencils. So just like in band or orchestra, you always want to think about holding your pencil further back to orchestrate your art. If you hold your pencils up close like this, like you're in math class, you're going to take a lot longer to color in. When you hold your pencil further back, you're able to do a wider range of motion, and you're able to control your pressure a little bit better so that you're not putting all the weight of your hand on the end of the pencil. And sometimes you can kind of find a nice little medium, like where it kind of fits in the webbing of my thumb and my forefinger. So it just kind of fits nicely right there. Same thing with chopsticks. You don't use your chopsticks all the way at the end. You always use them further back. Now, a value tornado is very easy to start off with. You start off with a lot of pressure, pressing very, very hard, and then as you're going further down, you're lightening it up and you're starting to show more white gaps of the paper. And so I'm lightening it up until it's almost just like a little blur right there. Now, this is Reeves, and like I said, I feel like they have a little bit more clay. I can kind of see this more shine that's in there. If you're ready to blend, never blend with your finger. That is the biggest no-no. I get so mad at my students that use their fingers to like blend and smudge with. What happens is you have oils on your hands, even if you wash your hands repeatedly, and now with COVID we gotta do hand sanitizer, but you're going to leave oil deposits on the paper and it's not gonna be even. You can actually even see, there's an artist that I know who's local, he's young, he does these amazing graphite artwork, but he uses his finger and I can see it in his art. I can point out, like, oh wow, look, you have a little fingerprint right there. And he goes, yeah, I try to erase it and it didn't go away. And I was like, that's because your oil basically permanently left it like an imprint on the paper that the graphite sticks to, and you can't really, you know, wipe it up. But we have these blending stumps. These are awesome. I like this size because I can get into eyes and small little areas. Or if you don't have anything like this, you can use a Q-tip. So these work just as well. You have to kind of prime them first. So when you're doing a value scale, it's okay to go ahead and do a value tornado, and then you can prime your Q-tip. Look how that completely just blended that in nicely. And there's no oil or grease. And I'm just keep on working that value further down, 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 until it's almost like the smudge, and I can even rotate my Q-tip and almost like pick up a little bit of the graphite, so that it's just barely a hint, a kiss of graphite on the very, very end. Now right here, when I use the Q-tip, it basically sucked up the graphite right here. So we lost that really nice dark value, and that's perfectly fine. This would be a really nice shadow, maybe around a cheekbone or around an ear, and you come back and you touch it up again with the graphite. So coming back, and you can feel it's a lot smoother because the paper has been primed with the graphite. And I'm lightening up my pressure, less and less, and like I said, it's already got this kind of nice, yummy smudge blend right here. And then you don't have to worry about messing up your fingers and getting them all gross. I've seen some people just rub so hard on their paper and it just looks awful. Alrighty, now let's do a value tornado with the prisma. So same thing, I'm coming in, I'm holding it more on its side, kind of close to the end of my hand. And look at that nice dark richness. Of course, that's when I gotta come in and sharpen just a little bit. We don't want any dull tools, we want sharp tools in our shed. So now I'm coming in. Now the difference with the black prisma is that as you go lighter and lighter, you're just basically showing the gaps in the paper. Okay? You can try and use a Q-tip. It's not quite the same. Basically what you're doing is called burnishing, so you're just kind of pushing the prisma into the small gaps of the paper. And I mean, it looks okay, but I'm not a big fan of using the Q-tip necessarily with the black prisma. I think just by just kind of adding some more layers, lining it up, and then finally kind of transitioning it down, 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 down. And I am like barely tapping the paper to get this last little bit of the value there. Alrighty? Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna combine these two beasts together to create a very saturated, wonderful shadow with a combo of graphite and with the Prismacolor pencil. Now if you don't have a black Prisma, you can use a black color pencil like from Crayola or Prane. Prane I like it way more. You could do Scholar as well, it's up to you. Just keep in mind that when I talked about them using clay and graphite together to make these color pencils, they use wax. So if you press really hard, you're gonna get a waxy bloom that's gonna come up, and that's not necessarily very good. So Crayola has a lot of wax in their color pencils. So if you need the black for it, use it, just don't press very hard at all. Okay, so right here, you can go on top of graphite, and it's gonna tone down the black Prisma. So it's not gonna be like this, but you can still mix the two together, and same thing, just kind of lighten up your pressure as you go down. And like at a deli, when you're making a sandwich, you start with graphite, you add some Prisma, and then you finish off with graphite. Or like a sandwich, you add the meat and the ingredients, and then you finish off with another piece of bread. So that's kind of my little analogy. So now I'm coming back on top of that Prisma, and I got this really good saturated right here. That looks great. Now if I came back and I I'm now going to add the graphite on top of the prisma. It's going to add that kind of shine that pencils get when you press really hard with them. That's the clay that's shining through, not necessarily the graphite. But now I'm able to kind of come in and extend that value tornado. And then I'm going to find the part of my Q-tip that has the graphite. And we can kind of blend and merge the two. And then extend down the tail of my value tornado. Okay? And then come back in. Sometimes you really can't tell the difference between the two until you kind of hold it at an angle. And I think that it's a lot more saturated with the dark by having prisma first and graphite on top. So if you're looking at this value scale right here, number 10, I'm going to use just plain pure prisma because that's the darkest dark you're going to get. 9, I'm going to put prisma and then graphite on top, and then maybe another little bit of the prisma again, because it's a little bit more saturated when you start with prisma and you're building up with graphite. So same thing right here. All right, now that we did our little value tornadoes, go ahead and make yours. So this one was prisma first, and then this one was graphite first. Okay. Now, once you've done your value tornadoes, I'm going to take the black and I am going to fill in number 10 with the black. Now, same thing, I'm holding my pencil further back and I'm doing little concentric circles like this, okay? I'm not holding it down and I'm not scribbling back and forth. I'm doing these nice kind of overlapping loops, and that will prevent you from getting these kind of streaky marks. And it's very, very important that we try to keep everything as smooth as possible. And as you can see, there's some white gaps that are peeking through. This would be really good for number 9. Then I'll come in with the graphite so that the graphite and the prisma can blend really well together. Okay, so that's one layer. Now remember, if you're using a black Crayola pencil, if you press really hard at the first time, you're going to get a waxy bloom. So don't press that hard. Build up the layers and you'll prevent that waxy bloom. And as I'm doing my little circles, I'm also rotating my pencil so that I keep a nice little point on it. Alright, I'm slowly filling in the black on there. And I'm going back and forth to kind of make a little border. And then if you want to come in and push, so this is my Q-tip end that has the prisma. This will also kind of soften and break up a little bit of that wax, and it's going to burnish it, so it's kind of flattening out the pigment in there. This is just a preference if you want it that way. By doing this, I'm actually kind of heating the surface with friction, and that waxy bloom kind of came up. So then break up that waxy bloom with one more layer of prisma. Okay, 10. Wonderful. All right, next one is 9. I'm going to be doing the prisma first. And if I slow down, you can see I'm actually just doing concentric circles and I'm not even picking up my pencil. Alright, so I have all these nice lovely gaps. Look at the compare the two. It's crazy. Okay, so that's just what this one is. Maybe one more little bit harder since 9 is going to be really, really dark. And then finally come in with the graphite, holding the pencil further back. And and you will immediately see that the black is being kind of dominated with the graphite, and you're getting a slight gray sheen to it. And that's perfectly fine, because graphite basically always has that shine to it. Yummy, yummy. I love how it's already coming out. Wonderful. Finally, we're going to top it off with just a light layer of the black. And I'm not pressing super, super hard. I'm just kind of building up the layers. I'm starting to see that wax coming to the surface, and that's fine. So 10, you should see a difference between 10 and 9. All right, now we're going to 8. Same thing, but maybe less of the black prisma. So I'm not going to saturate the paper too much. I'm switching now to the graphite. A little bit more of the prisma, but not terribly too much more. Okay, so I'm starting to step down. There's still a little bit of some white gaps in there, so I think I'm going to use the graphite side of my Q-tip, and it's going to kind of lift away a bit of the graphite that was added onto there. Finally finish it off. A little bit of graphite. Just a smidge of prisma. Okay, slowly stepping down. Now, with number 7, I'm going to switch and do graphite first. Of black, and there's still little gaps in there, so that allows space for the prisma to kind of merge and blend in with it. And I'm kind of happy with that. I don't think I want to go too crazy. Maybe a little bit more graphite, and this time pressing slightly harder to fill in those white gaps. Noise. Okay. This very last end of the value tornado. Okay, so pretty much that's it. A little bit of a 5-minute kind of tutorial on working with your values. If you have any areas that are a little bit uneven, you can kind of come back and blend it and to kind of smooth it out so that it's more even. Get it to look like there's more of a difference between those. So the 4, I don't know on my phone if it's much of a difference, but the 5 I definitely see it's darker. The 4 is a little bit lighter. The 3 and then the 2 is just a very nice light smudge. Okay, thank you for watching. This is my little tutorial on combining graphite and prisma together to create a full value scale. Thank you.